And it's back to coding. I very much enjoyed my 2 week break. I felt like I was getting to a stage towards the end of 2024 where I was still doing about an average of an hour of coding each day, but I was feeling more and more demotivated. I found that I wasn't really paying attention to the Scrimba videos and other bits and pieces that I was doing. And in all honesty, long story short, I was feeling quite burnt out. As we closed in on Christmas and with spending 5 days in Palma with my wife's family, I just decided that it was a good time to completely take a break from all the coding stuff, hit the reset button and attack it fresh in 2025. Some people might find it cliche, but I always find the turn of the new year to be a really good time to evaluate the year previous and essentially set yourself some goals and set up some good habits for the following year. Obviously, I've got your classic sort of health and fitness goals. I want to get my purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Then I've got some career-based goals within my current job role as well. But a large chunk of this review process and setting goals for 2025 was centered around the learning to code mission that I've been on. So what I decided to do, rather than pick up where I left off and go into the same thing that I was doing before, the same processes and the same way of learning how to code, I thought it'd be a really good time to press pause and review and reflect and do some research as to how I can be a bit more efficient and make sure that I'm actually going about this learning process in the right way. This has been a thought for a little while, but because I've only got limited time outside of my work hours and on the weekends, anything else just feels like procrastination, like learning how to learn and what I should learn. I tend to lean more towards action and just being like, right, I've got 45 minutes tonight. I just want to get stuck into Scrimba or get stuck into this project and just use that time to focus on coding as much as possible, as opposed to learning how to go about the coding best practices, etc. So reflecting on what I've done so far, there's 3 big takeaways that I need to improve to expedite this whole journey, this whole goal of mine going into 2025. First was move on to projects as quickly as I can. I spent far too long in tutorials, copying exactly what the instructor's saying and not enough time trying to apply it. I've definitely been guilty of, when you go through a course and there's a percentage and trying to get through to the 100% as quickly as possible, not fully understanding concepts, basically copying what the instructor's doing and being like, yeah, okay, I've got it, and moving on to the next part. So for me, a big thing is learning a concept, like if statements, for example, and then applying that to a project of my own or applying that in another scenario to reinforce that I actually do understand it and that I can do something else other than just copy what the instructor is doing. Second thing, which follows on nicely, is a huge mistake I made with CSS is trying to learn all of CSS before then moving on to JavaScript. What I quickly found out is that CSS is a rabbit hole that goes very deep, and you can't expect to complete CSS before moving on to JavaScript. And if we're talking in terms of roadmaps, I did a bit of HTML first, then I did CSS, now I'm on vanilla JavaScript, and the next step is React followed by Node.js. I found that already going into vanilla JavaScript, I'm like trying to learn everything before moving on to React. And a big thing for me that I've been doing research on is what's the bare minimum that I need to know? What are the key fundamental concepts that I need to know that's enough to allow me to then start completing projects with React? So what I did is I took found a bunch of courses on JavaScript. I looked at all their syllabuses. I put those into one document, and then I fed that to ChatGPT, and I said, what are the key concepts from all these courses that I need to learn before moving on to React? So I've got a fairly good list of minimum items to tick off, and just to really grasp, just to know what they are. I found a good YouTube video where the creator mentioned doing 3 small projects. These are pretty much your run-of-the-mill projects that every course has, so things like a calculator, to-do list, etc. And a good litmus test was try to create one of these small projects with vanilla JavaScript without using a tutorial. So that's going to be my goal going into this month. Then the next step after that is to do 3 medium-sized projects. And this is where I plan to move on to React. I read a good Reddit thread where the advice was basically learn the key fundamental concepts, which I've got a list of now. But then it said, once you have that, then start taking on projects. If you then need something if you need to learn something new, then you go back and fill the blanks rather than trying to learn everything that you possibly can and then build a project, because that's kind of what I've been trying to do, and unsurprisingly, it's been taking me forever. Last lesson I want to implement going into 2025 is that too often when my code hasn't been working, I've been getting frustrated and going to Claude to tell me the answer. And I imagine there's obviously a time and place for this, but one of the key sort of recurring themes when I was doing this research was that you need to get used to reading code and debugging and figuring out what's wrong with it yourself. That's a massive part of apparently being a software engineer. So I basically need to be a bit more patient, have a bit more resilience, and try and tackle these problems by myself rather than just relying on a Gen AI model to do it for me. Watched another YouTube video where the creator mentioned that learning Git and GitHub is essential before progressing down this road. Now, I followed the Odin project, and every time I start a new project and have to create a repo and load it up to Git and do the fetch and push and pull and all that sort of stuff, I didn't actually understand it and know what I was doing. I just followed the steps, and as a result, my GitHub has become quite of a mess. My folders have become quite of a mess. So I looked this up on Reddit as well, and it was a resounding yes. Get a good understanding of Git and GitHub, because that's going to pay huge dividends. So the first thing I'm doing where I'm at now, the first thing I'm doing is I'm doing a course in GitHub. There was some that was like 17 hours long, and there's the popular opinion seemed to be that's way too much. But I found a good crash course that's an hour. I have to admit, this 1 hour crash course has taken me about 3 hours so far. I got stuck in a problem on Sunday night and yesterday about accessing an SSH key and storing that in a file, and it was saying permission denied, and I was going back and forth. It was super frustrating, but persevered, managed to tick that box. I've still got about half an hour of the course left. So hoping to get that done as soon as possible, and then I'm going to try and tick off those JavaScript fundamentals as quickly as possible, and then try and build a small project without any tutorial, and then finally move on to React. That's as far as I've got this week. So as always, thanks for watching. If you are further down this journey than me, and you're a full-time software engineer with lots of experience, feel free to message me, tell me where I'm going wrong, if I'm doing anything incorrectly or where I can improve. Any feedback is welcome. Thanks, and I hope you have a great start to 2025.